awesome co-founder of Paradigm Trading here with us today on the GVol podcast. Her name is Michal Koonin. I'd like to welcome her here. Thanks, Mickey, for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I know I speak for Paradigm and myself personally. Any opportunity for a Paradigm GVol collaboration is always enjoyable, so I'm excited to be here.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate that. So I was thinking maybe we could start with kind of getting to know you, Mickey. So you have a pretty successful and long-term career in the trading space. You also lived in Chicago for a long time, so that's very cool. So maybe we could start there. What got you into trading? What was your main interest? And when you were still in school, how did you sort of pursue that, if that was the case?
So starting with my school, I studied statistics and operations research. The idea of trading is really driven down to the aspect of problem solving. And that's really where, my interest came from. I was an intern on the exchange floor of the Mercantile for, the commodity pits. And it was so exciting. I just wanted to learn more about the market. So after I graduated, from undergrad, I went through what I thought was the natural progression within a Chicago proprietary trading firm. I was a trading assistant. I graduated to trader, portfolio manager. And when I started, a lot of the volumes were still being traded on the physical exchange trading floors, especially in my products, US indexes. So I started in a time that was also really fun, right before the 2008 financial crisis. I was in the S&P option pit over at the Merc, and then more of my time was spent at the CBOE, the Chicago Board of Options Exchange. I traded in the IWM and SPX pit. As you can imagine, trading during those times was extreme, and my trading education was at warp speed, experiencing, I felt like, was every possible scenario. And it set me up to see some of the most extreme market conditions, something that I think all of us can relate to in the recent crypto movements. But being on the floor for some time, I moved upstairs to trading on the screens, and I helped manage the risk for our index group. And when I moved upstairs, I started working closer with our trading models and our systems, and working in that aspect, in that capacity, really got me interested in building out more of my own personal technical skills. So while I was there, I went back to get my master's degree in software engineering at DePaul University in Chicago. It was really nice complement to the logical approach, as I mentioned before, traders have to working and solving a problem. This education allowed me to grow my ability in building the actual tools needed for those solutions that we wanted. So from there, I knew I wanted to pivot myself into something where I could really grow and have a larger impact on something.
Love it.
Yeah.
So, that's great. So maybe just going back to some of the newer traders who might not even know about the pit. What is a runner? What do they do exactly?
Yeah, so this was before all the markets moved electronic, and we actually wrote the orders on tickets, on pieces of paper. And so the idea was that a customer would call down to the floor, someone on the phones would receive that order, write it on a piece of paper. The runner would run that order from the phone to the pit, where the broker would then outcry it to all the liquidity providers in the pit, and they would find price discovery and execution in the pit.
Cool. So it's like you're almost a matching engine. You're like taking the order, and then the matching engine is the pit. That's fascinating. And when you were a runner, was it in the options market or was it like a futures market?
It was both. It was in the commodities, the agricultural pit, so it was both options and futures. The futures was a little bit more active in those pits, but yeah.
So you were learning all the hand signs for like this is October, all that stuff.
Yes. And then when I was a trader, I actually, used it more often. I remember a visitor coming onto the floor and asking, like, how do you know who you're talking to, or what is people saying? And it's just like the easiest way to explain it is just organized chaos. You get a sense for picking up certain people's voices, and I just know that, like, even between all the screaming, I know, like, which of my guys is yelling for me and I'm yelling for him, and it's just organized chaos.
I love it. That's awesome. So it sounds like you also had experience in both commodities and sort of the equity indexes. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So Most of my actual trading career was in the US indexes, specifically the SPX, and then also spiders a little bit. And then later I moved into soft commodities, managing that book of soft commodities, which includes sugar, coffee, cotton, cocoa, and OJ. So it was really a transition. But as a market maker, you learn the nuances of different markets. I really enjoyed learning about commodities and just the different effects that impact those rather than, macro events that could impact the US indexes.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And then you went through 2008, crazy times. So Wolverine, for those who don't know, is a proprietary trading shop in Chicago. I'm sure they have offices everywhere. What was the process like when you started working at Wolverine? Did they put you through like an education process, or did they just throw you in the pit right away? Like, how did you, go from an intern to a senior trader? Was it just through experience?
Yeah, so the education process there is you start off as, or at least back then when, a lot of activity was on the floor, you start off as a trading assistant on the floor. And so again, I started in the SPX, and you manage a group of, we had 10 traders in the pit. The SPX is one of the largest open outcry pits still today. And the idea of the trading assistant is you are taking the information that you're seeing down on the floor, conveying it to the risk manager upstairs where they're able to look at the screen markets. And you're able to kind of be that middleman to help the group have full communication. You're processing positions, making sure our positions, our risk is looking correct, because I can see the actual executions going down on the floor and communicating that with the risk manager upstairs.
Cool. So there's like two venues of flow, and then you're able to kind of help maybe facilitate arbitrages sometimes that happen, or capturing edge on one side and hedging it out on the other. That's fascinating. And so you really got the chance to see commodity vol, equity vol, crypto vol, which we'll get into in a second here. But in the middle of your career, it sounded like you stepped away and learned some computer science at DePaul and then came back. So, or did you do it simultaneously? How did you manage that? Because it sounds like, trading career is very intensive. So is learning a computer science degree.
Yes. Yeah, it was simultaneously. The one good thing about those markets is that there is a close, not like the crypto markets. So that did give me the opportunity to go to school part-time at night. So I would go to school at night. And yeah, that's yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I remember as a young trader myself, I used to hate the weekends. I was like, why is the market closed on the weekends? And now that I'm in the industry, I love the weekends.
Yes.
I'm so glad they're closed. So that's super interesting. And what did you learn as far as computer science? Was it Python, C++, or was it kind of like a holistic, all the languages? And how did that help you in your trading?
Yeah, it was mostly Python at the time. The school assignments weren't financially focused. It was, just simple school education, but I think taking that and converting it into what I was working on at Wolverine. Wolverine was also, they were building out their education department, which was really growing at the time. They were focusing on, teaching their traders just simple SQL and how to, do their own data analysis. And so relaying both of, my Python ability and SQL and just, working with the RAD team over there, was really helpful and something that I will always be grateful for.
Oh, that's great. And then before we jump in to sort of now your current role, or how you co-founded Paradigm, before jumping into that, is there any trading books that were really impactful in your journey as a trader that you would recommend to newer traders?
Yeah, absolutely. So I remember when I started, I always think Natenberg is a great resource for any beginning trader. It's very straightforward, easy to understand, gives you the foundation of option Greeks, trading structures. So that's what I would recommend. Another one, John Hull's Options, Futures, and Other Derivatives, but that is, a little bit more textbook-like. It's dense to get through, but that's also something I remember, referencing as a junior trader. Both of those, I think, are very valuable in any trader's education. And then, just for fun, I always like to throw out, I think Liar's Poker is a fun book to read. It gives a really good depiction of how floors are actually like, the personality, the entertainment aspect of being down there. And so, yeah, I would recommend that one as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Those Michael Lewis books, those are one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah.
And so, kind of, I know I keep saying last question before moving on, but I do have one more question. So, statistics and computer science. What is kind of if you had to choose between the two, what is sort of your main love? And then if you had to recommend for sort of a newer trader coming in, what would you recommend that they choose between those two if they're choosing between the two?
Yeah. I think right now, I think statistics is a little more theoretical. Computer science is a little more realistic. And, I like the idea of actually building solutions. And statistics to me is kind of looking at previous data analysis. So one's looking backwards, one's looking forwards. I think having both is a really nice complement to each other. Definitely anybody entering the space, I would, encourage any kind of computer science or software engineering education. I think it's just helpful to approach any situation in that logical problem solving aspect that a programmer usually approaches.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, for those of you who are new, Paradigm has an RFQ platform, request for quote, for trading crypto options. And so, like me and like I think we're similar in the sense that we both have these option backgrounds that for me options were sort of my first love, crypto my second. How did you find yourself in the crypto space? Were you dabbling in crypto as you're trading SPX options in your career, or how did that transition happen?
Yeah, so I remember in 2017, I started really getting interested in it. That was also, I started learning about it. The SIBO and the CME both listed their Bitcoin futures contracts. That was also around the time that I started finishing my master's degree. So the technical aspect and it was a new asset class, really. It piqued my interest to learn about it, but it wasn't until 2019 that I became active myself. And I knew that this was something that I wanted to devote full-time my career to. I was connected to one of, a prominent crypto options and futures trader at the time. I was understanding the derivatives trading workflows, the tools, and how that the crypto derivative community was growing. It was clear that crypto derivatives were still in their infancy, and it was amazing to see how these option traders were finding liquidity and executing their trades in this new market. The creativity required for them to actually trade, barely any infrastructure was available. I think that's what really drove Paradigm to launch crypto options in the space. We saw an industry that had so much potential. Our solution and product is agnostic. And so what better way to launch in a market that was just starting, and we could grow and help mature the overall marketplace. So, I would say in 2019 is when I officially became active in it, when Paradigm officially started operating in the crypto markets. And yeah, we've grown ever since.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how did you and Anand meet? So Anand is the other co-founder of Paradigm for those who are new.
Yes. We actually met through a mutual colleague, Darshan, who is the founder of X Margin. He introduced us both. And, Anand also comes from the traditional markets. He was on a commodity trading desk, and that's where the vision of Paradigm was born. And what he saw, he was building a solution for himself at the time on that desk, to automate trading workflows, to centralize liquidity for counterparty to counterparty trading. And I really thought that was a solution even for, the products I was trading, the US indexes, the soft commodities. And I think, it sounds like a simple solution, but it's a huge offering that is product agnostic, can fit into any asset class. And that's, and that's really why I decided to pivot from actually being in the trader seat to building these solutions for the traders themselves.
Yeah, cool. That makes a lot of sense. Something that I've noticed as a founder, and I wonder if you kind of have the same conclusion is that in trading, often you're rewarded for being patient and putting in trades at the right timing. And I feel as a founder, it's like if you're not running, you're dying. If you're not moving forward, you're moving back. Do you feel like what are the main differences that you see between being a founder versus a trader?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest lessons I learned as a trader is the ability to stay calm and focused in a chaotic time. And I think, some aspect of that also applies to running a business and being a co-founder. There's so much changing in our ecosystem right now. Trying to decide which business line is most efficient for us to go into is something that we are always struggling with. And, we have a limited amount of resources. We want to make sure that we focus them in the most fruitful way. So making these calculated decisions, whether you are a trader or whether you are running a business, is something that I think overlap, and something that I think, my experience in trading, has helped me grow as a leader in helping run Paradigm.
Oh, that's very cool. And so you mentioned that theoretically RFQs are product agnostic. Now, and you also mentioned that before Paradigm, traders were kind of getting into trades in unique ways and doing a lot of legwork to do that. So what is the difference that Paradigm brings to traders?
Right. So, we offer a platform where you can build any complex trading structure, also the ability to combine options and futures in the same transaction, which is something that is very attractive to delta neutral traders. The idea of atomic trading removes the leg risk of getting one leg of your complex structure done and then being hung on the others. And so Paradigm is a block trading platform, and you are able to build these complex structures, find liquidity for any size. Our liquidity providers are pricing deep sizes, competitive pricing, and in counterparty to counterparty executions with atomic execution, meaning that everything is blocked into your account at your settlement venue of choice in the same transaction. Before, what we were seeing is counterparties, connecting in whatever way that was, over Telegram, over WhatsApp, over Skype, and trying to creatively, leg into this on the screen. And obviously you can imagine all the risks that go into that. And so, Paradigm is basically replacing all that with the automation of single click execution.
So the old way, I would hit up a counterparty on Telegram and say, can you throw this bid in this market and I'll take the other side when you do, something like that?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And there was, and it was even a group chat. So, even if me and you were in the group chat, other people were, listening to our negotiations, and it could be, picked off or front run or whatever it might be. So, I was impressed that they were actually, getting trades done the way that they were. And, I'm impressed with the growth of how far they had come even before we had launched Paradigm. Just their creativity, and if there is a desire to trade, they will find a way, and they prove that.
Yeah, definitely. So now with your solution and the Paradigm solution, people say, I want to trade this four-legged butterfly with all these strikes, and can I get a quote? And the market maker will return a buy and sell quote, and then the taker will just pick the side that they want. Is that right?
Absolutely. So that was our first version. In the directed RFQ, we actually have a new version. And so you can post your price as well. You can better the price. You can leave it there. So you'll see the responses back from the liquidity providers. You can join it, you can improve it, and you can take, as you mentioned, as well.
Cool. That's fascinating. So when we look at the crypto option space here at GVol, something that I noticed is that if you look at notional size versus underlying market caps, the notional open interest on Bitcoin is something like 2 or 3% of the Bitcoin market cap. Maybe that's changed now with this sell-off, but in the traditional world, what we often see is like SPY options, which is the S&P 500 ETF. The notional open interest in the options market is like 200% of the market cap. So there's a ton of growth coming into the crypto option space. What, from your perspective, what are you seeing? Is it still just kind of crypto people trading crypto options, or are you seeing some traditional finance folks starting to step into the foray of crypto options?
Absolutely. I would say a combination of both, and the momentum of traditional adaptation, I think, is really growing. We are seeing a lot of new interest from these traditional entities onboarding onto Paradigm. They're looking for these more institutional grade tools. The traditional finance folks are used to trading more complex structures and finding liquidity and trading spreads. And that's something that Paradigm obviously is very close to. We want to grow the spread market. And so we are working closely with them. We're seeing a lot more of them onboarding. And, growing the liquidity for this is something that our team is actively working on.
Yeah, that's great. So now your background enables you to see, okay, commodity vol, equity vol, crypto vol, really compare all of them. So that's pretty deep insights. To avoid any conflicts of interest, maybe we'll step away from the crypto vol, but did you see any sort of things in commodity vol, especially in 2008, where like, is there any kind of crazy stories where maybe someone like got caught off guard or someone made a killing on the other side? Is there kind of any crazy stories being on the pit in 2008?
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely some of those. I remember there was an order that came into the pit, to buy 50,000 of the S&P 50 strike, the 50 strike. Now, at that time, we were probably trading around 900, and just for reference, today the SPX is trading about 4,100. But the first crazy thought that I was thinking was, do the strikes even get listed that low? I didn't even know a strike existed that far out of the money. And then the other thing was the size of that order. At the time, the large order sizes were probably 1,000 or 2,000. And I was like, 50,000 is massive. Is this right? So, immediately everybody was selling them. But when you sell your wings, you always think, how is this going to affect my slide? How many do I want to be short down there? But, I remember something I'll never forget. Our risk manager at the time, he was basically like, well, I guess if the S&P ever gets anywhere near 50, none of us will probably be here. And we will probably be worried about bigger things like our livelihood or just owning commodities for our own basic survival needs. And so it was just crazy. Everybody was jumping to sell these, 50 strike, imagining if the S&P ever got to 50, it's just absurd but crazy. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That always reminds me of this question I like to ask people. What's scarier,
Yeah.
a world where Bitcoin's zero or a world where Bitcoin's $1 million?
Right.
That's super interesting. And then from your own trading, so you have a pretty unique Telegram handle. Would you call yourself sort of a shortfall seller or a long vol? What is your preferences back in the day when you were trading on the floor? What intuitively made more sense to you?
I think it really depends on the environment that you're trading in. Obviously, as a market maker, you want to be Greek neutral. I just want to be in and out. I don't want to carry a long position one way or the other. Now, obviously, as you enter into different conditions, you have to adjust your strategy a little bit. In 2008, being long vol was probably more, advantageous. And then in the quieter markets, selling vol is, just makes more sense. And anyways, I think short vol is more exciting than sitting on long vol.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And then just kind of closing up here with a couple of fun questions. So, I mean, you're living a crazy chaotic life as a founder. You also have a family. How do you balance the two? Do you find time for yourself? Do you have any hobbies that you like a lot? Are you playing video games on the weekends? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm waiting for my kids to get into that, but no, yeah, it's a good question. Finding that work-life balance is definitely something that's very important. I would just say most of my free time is spent, trying to enjoy with my family and with my friends. Usually that's outdoors. And now the weather is getting better, so that makes it easier. So yeah.
That's great. Cool. Well, Mickey, if anyone wants to join Paradigm or get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, everything that I talked about here, referencing our stats, our activity, we all make everything public on our website. I would encourage everybody to visit our website, paradigm.co. We have a stats section. It's also available on the GVol platform as well. And then, one thing that I also want to reference for everybody is our new insight section. So we're working with collaborators in the space to build publications and relevant pieces. So I would encourage everyone to visit our website. There is a link to our Telegram chat on our website, so feel free to check that out. Otherwise, you can reach me directly at short_vol, and also our Telegram channels are, Trade Paradigm. So feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. Well, Mickey, it was really great chatting with you. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. And remember, find edge, capture alpha, and slang size.
Do it on Paradigm.
Bye, everyone.